Level Up Latina partners with working women and mamas alike to guide them in achieving fulfilling career and life goals through financial empowerment, professional or leadership coaching, and personal wellness. Find the unique coaching you need to succeed.
You're listening to Vero, Ceci, and Irene, and we are Level Up Latina.
Welcome back to another episode of the Level Up Latina podcast. This is episode 240. And yes, we're a little bit out of it because spring break has begun for some of our children, and there's been some excitement and some lack of sleep, but then some fun again. And then here we are again recording este viernes, but you'll be hearing this in April. So how exciting. And hopefully it's not an April Fool's month for you. So before we get into the topic about how to make the most of your raise or how to make the most of your promotion or that next step in your career that you just reached, I'm going to check in with my beautiful, amazing co-host, Ceci e Irene. ¿Cómo se encuentran?
Good. Cracking up. The stuff we send each other behind the scenes. We're like each other's meme comadres. Mm-hmm. So we freaking send each other. And you guys were cracking up about something. And I'm like, I don't know. Que me ves pez. But then you guys were like, you didn't see the latest video? Anyway, so we're a little goofy. We don't mean to be so excited about this very serious career conversation. Our warm-up for this episode was hilarious. But thank you for sending me those funny videos, girls. I'm crying. Literally recovering from crying. Because I was laughing, not because I'm sad.
También I'm aquí riéndome. It came up on my feed randomly last night. I was up late last night, but it came up and I'm like, déjame mandárselos a las muchachas. It was hilarious. But anyway, aquí andamos, just ready for the conversation. Maybe not so ready because I'm still like giggly, pero ahí vamos.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, when we talk about this stuff, I mean, career, obviously our professional careers and what we do as professionals, is serious, but at the same time, what we do should be also taken lightheartedly, and we shouldn't take ourselves so serious. We should be willing to grow and learn, and as we're growing, we're experiencing new things, and we're like, que a veces nos causa risa. I remember I was like saying, I want to cry, but I'm laughing because that little laughter causes this it's kind of like coping in a sense to that next step of sadness and joy and crying for joy. But anyway, we shouldn't take ourselves too serious, but we should be willing to learn and grow and accept these new things that come our way because especially as Latinas or as first generations, or most than likely we're a lot of the first going through or reaching these new milestones that maybe our parents or our tios or tias can't relate to, or our cousins. So that's why we wanted to bring this up because in my case, I brought it up to Ceci and Irene was because I have one of my clients that I've been working with for a little bit over a year. This client is amazing. I love her. She's such a fireball. She's just so willing to be coached and then learn and take everything from it and put it into action. But she is like above and beyond. Esta muchacha, te lo juro, I give you props, girl, because when you hear this story, you're going to know exactly who you are. But we've been working together for a little bit over a year. And throughout this time, she ended up moving from Chicago to Houston and, same company, but different management team. And she's like thriving. And first that taught her like, hey, not all leaders are the same. Some leaders actually want to see you succeed and want to give you the feedback and give you the information that you need to have like a clear career path, So she's experiencing a good leadership team. And then not only that, we had been working on her, like advocating for herself. Me da risita because I'm just like, this girl, I'm telling you, she went above and beyond. Like how to document her wins, like professional wins. I'm like, I always tell my clients, have your little black book of professional wins. Like what, not just what you won. Like if there was a project and there were certain deliverables that were like, seemed impossible and you got it done, ponlo so you don't forget. Because many times something bad happens and we forget all the good stuff, right? So I'm like, document all your little wins, all these things that you've done, document how other people have given you props, like told you, hey, great job on doing this. Of managers or leaders are outside of your direct group of leaders of who you directly report to. So we've done this. And then when it came down to like, hey, it's season for promotions and the season for salaries is here. It's upon us. So I said, girl, you better bring out the little black book and you're going to put together a presentation. And she's like, what? I was like, yeah, we went to the next level. So now it's not PowerPoint presentations, guys. They're called slide decks, right? So she put together this like slide deck.
Yes, decks. They're called decks. Yeah,
decks.
learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Wait,
learn the hard
it's
way.
the same thing?
Es la misma cosa.
PowerPoint, así se llama ahora?
Sí, pero los jóvenes profesionales
Yeah,
dicen
but
decks. Like
young people
Oh,
call them
wow.
decks, slide decks. Yeah, so you're putting together a deck.
Mhm.
And
She put
we're
together
over here
her-
coaching, talking about PowerPoints. They're like, "What's a PowerPoint, ma'am?"
Ma'am. Señora.
They pushed the button.
Señora, se dice deck.
Deck, okay? Not the other deck. But
I'm like, a Dexel scam? It's like a medical procedure? Is this a new weight loss drug? I'm going to need some of that
I'm going to need
Dex.
some of that Dex. Dextrose. Dexter. Anyway, enough of the jokes, but yes. So she puts together this presentation and she goes in there like bien lista, talks to her new boss who's so receptive, puts together a presentation. He's like, can I get a copy of this? He shows it to his team, right? To the the managers and the leaders. They're like, hey, this is what she put together. This is what she's doing. And she made her ask. I'm like, what are you going to ask for? And she made her ask and she pretty much got it. She got it. She got a $14,000 raise, okay? Now, when they came back to her, they were like, no promotion this time around, but she's an engineer, so there's certain things she has to, certain tests and things and licensures that she has to pass in this particular industry to get to that promotion or that next level or even like that, right? So they're like, look, that promotion will, you're pass your test, and then by the end of this year for 2024, that's in the future for you. That's in the works for you with an additional raise. But we need you to get that done first. But for now, these $14K, this is how it's broken down. And she was excited. She was a little bummed first. She's like, I can't believe it's broken down like this. I'm like, girl, you got 14,000. You got 14,000. Take it. The next thing was she went into a panic, y'all. She went into a panic. She was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. No me lo quiero gastar. Mind you, she just had a big move from Chicago to Houston. When she got to Houston, she had a horrible experience with her apartment. It was like roach infested. And then the management team did not want to do anything about it. Like we already exterminated. And the roaches were there. They were there. They were like camped out in her house. Like, hey, what's up? Le decían buenos días, le hacían café, like all that stuff kind of deal, okay? Give her unwanted massages. Like that was a neighbor that needed to go, okay?
Terrible.
Terrible.
That's a facial massage you do not
You do not want it.
Gross.
So I'm telling you, she went through so much. 2023 was so hard on her. So 2024 kicked in. And it's like all that work that she had been putting in se reveló. Se empezó a revelar, And she's out of that old roach infested apartment. She's into a new apartment that she loves, that she feels like, she just feels like it's home. So she had a lot of expenses, And then, so here comes this raise and she's like, oh my God. And she's good. She had a budget. She had things. But this new dollar signs came at her and it was like, oh my God, ¿qué hago? And I'm exaggerating. She wasn't like that, but she was a little bit just freaking out. Like, hey, first thing she said was like, okay, my God, Vero, I have these items in my Amazon cart since December. Do I buy them? And I'm like, okay. And then she goes, my knees hurt. She had been going to the gym a lot. She recently had surgery. So her health was another thing that she was very concerned about. So she's taking care of herself a lot more and exercising just to strengthen her body. She's like, my knees hurt when I go to the gym, blah, blah, blah. I was like, she's like, I don't know if I should get new shoes. I don't know if I should spend new money on shoes. And I was like, right there. I'm like, I'm going to stop you right there, homegirl. First of all, if your items are there in your cart since December and you've had a chance to review them and you still need them, buy that shit. Buy it. Buy yourself what you need, okay? Number 2, if you're trying to take care of yourself, of your health and your body and get stronger, and your knees are hurting by you going to the gym because your shoes suck, cómprate los santos zapatos. Cómprate los zapatos. But I think it was more of like, is it okay? When we get this pot of money, you're just like, is it okay for me to do like this? So then we started thinking, I'm like, okay, you have a budget, you have this, but I want you to feel very comfortable just how you're getting your money in, that you also spend it. So we want to spend it. Yes, we always say, be mindful with your money and be intentional with how you spend, but also maybe just give it a purpose. Give your money a purpose. Like, este dólar es para my emergency fund. Este dólar es para my, my products for hygiene. This dollar is going to be for my new shoes. Give every single dollar that comes in a purpose. So when you spend it, like, hey, para ese propósito es. Because it's for your good. It's for whatever it is you need. So it took that. We went through a bunch of different different methods, like budgeting methods. So we came down to, I'm like, you're going to have to work off a zero-based budget just because every single dollar needs a job. and go from there, so that you don't feel like when you start seeing this money coming in that you could just spend it anywhere and you're going to feel guilty and embarrassed or shame because you spent that money. So dale propósito. So my question to you ladies is, have you experienced it? Have you had a client that's experienced it? And what do you recommend, or what was the outcome of, of having experienced that?
I've had several clients experience sort of that big jump and then a little bit of that panic of like, what am I going to do now with all this money? Because you get excited. Not so many that I think are the extreme that they don't want to spend it. I think a lot of people plan to spend it more so than, like, I was about to say her name. That's so commendable that she's like, do I not buy the stuff on my Amazon cart? My stuff I would have like beeline to the Amazon cart. Like I would have beeline. So I think like, que bonito que she even spent time to reflect with her coach about spending her money. A lot of my clients, I think, have swayed on the side of like, they know what they want to invest in, what they want to spend on. There has been a little bit of, what am I going to do with that? So we have that conversation before. So I take it upon myself to say, okay, now that money's coming, what are we doing with it? And a lot of things that have come up is pretend like it's not even there. Like a lot of clients are in the position where it's like, you know what, you're right. Like I'm going to save it. I'm going to have it deposited into a separate account. I'm doing just great as I am now. I'm saving as I am now. Like if you don't really need to utilize the extra money, oftentimes people need the extra money to really ramp up your savings. I have one client that's very young. And so I think, this is all happening and it's great and it's wonderful. But like my biggest advice to my youngest clients is the advice that we probably ignored when we were in our 20s. Shelling that shit away in retirement plans is a big deal and a great idea. Even a high yield savings, the younger you start, right? It's only 5%, but still the younger you start, like shell it away. So in my experience, Vero, I've often talked to them about how willing are you to sort of continue as you are now. You're doing pretty well, especially when they're doing well and they don't have a lot of debt to pay down. How willing are you to just set up a different account, send all that over to that account and create that savings or create that emergency fund that you really wanted because you never know. So I'm always operating from what's your emergency fund? What's your fun fund? And then what's your future fund? So like, are you saving for retirement? Are you saving for emergencies? And are you saving to spend on the freaking shoes? Like it's okay to spend on the freaking shoes. I once had a board member who he was in charge of like all of our raises and giving me numbers and stuff for bonuses and whatnot. And he would always be really great. And he would always like, when he sat with me and talked to me about my bonuses, he was always like, this is for you. This money is for you. Spend it on you. He always kind of set that tone. Like, I know you want to spend it on your kids, or maybe you're thinking about all the things you want to do for your family, but like, this money is for you. Make sure that part of it is to do something selfish for you. And I always remember that and loved that guidance and that experience. And then I had another person years later who was like, bonuses are meant to be saved. Save every freaking dollar of that bonus, which I think, wow, like that's a huge, tall ask, like to don't touch it. But I have had years like that where it's like, I'm going to act like I didn't get a bonus this year. That has made a huge impact in my life, in my just ability, my relationship with money, when I have this huge pot of money that I act like I didn't get and I put it away. So there's all these different strategies that if you're comfortable, you're comfortable. But I like to recommend that plan for fun and save money towards a fun bucket, an emergency bucket, and a long-term savings bucket. So don't spend it all now because you're going to need it later. Have a pot that is literally emergencies. You don't know Uncle Sam comes for money, your house, that you own it, something major happens, like an emergency, an accident, anything. Like you don't want to live with that, I don't have savings. And then obviously the fun money, which everyone knows me, I spend it on traveling.
There you go.
Travel bucket. ¿Y tú, Ceci?
I was going to talk about me personally because I've had situations where I had like a huge jump in salary raise. The biggest one was like from legal assistant to lawyer. Like, and it was, I was still young. I was going to say still in my 20s, but I wasn't. I was 30, 31. But I never really learned how to like manage money. And so with that big jump, I was just thinking that I didn't know how to manage that. And I was just kind of spending, splurge if I wanted to, because I could. And at that point I was single, no responsibilities. I was living at home. I was giving my parents, some money monthly, or would, kind of buy things here and there. But I wasn't like, I didn't sit down and create a budget. I never did that. Probably until I got married. And, Luis and I did that. So that's something that maybe, like you were saying, like, I wish, we're telling people in their 20s to do that now. And I wish someone would have told me that or sat me down. Pero es como, you just have to live your own experiences sometimes. Like what we were talking about earlier, like with teenagers, que uno les dice, and it's just like, no, they have to live their own experiences. Uno de sus papás or tíos, like you want to teach them, like, por donde tú vas, yo ya pasé, but it's like, no le hacen caso a uno, But anyway, so in my case, I feel like maybe that would have been the case, or maybe if a professional, you know what? And her firm did have like a financial planner come talk to us, but who was it? Like probably like a white man, someone that I didn't relate to. So fast forward to now, when I do get raises, it's not a big jump like it was between legal assistant to lawyer. But when I do get raises, and they come annually, like Luis and I, or even when Luis gets raises, like we sit down, we look at our budget, and we try to pretend like we didn't get that extra money, como dices tú, Irene, and like pretend like we don't, like how, or what else can we use it? Can we pay ourselves first? Should we deposit it into like the high yielding interest account, or what expenses do we have right now? And more like recently we said, and we give each other like a budget, like just spending for like my spending money, like si me quiero comprar, no sé, like una nieve, or I don't know, go get a massage, facial, whatever. Like that's like los masajes. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't paying attention to it. Like I wasn't paying attention to it. I had a lot going on like the last year, so I wasn't paying attention. Sometimes I would, sometimes I wouldn't. And then I definitely wasn't paying attention to it. When was it? Like the past, like the month of February and maybe January. And then I wasn't, taking into account, lesson learned, that I wasn't working. Like I wasn't working in February, remember, because I took time off. And so part of it was like unpaid, or I want to say maybe a whole month was unpaid. So I wasn't paid. I know, using my credit cards. And then when we were sitting down, I was like, oh shit, like gasté este dinero sin pensar, I didn't sit down. I didn't think about it. So I was using my credit card as if I was working. But we sat down, we did our budget again, and then just looked at like where the money was going. And now I'm like, I'm trying to be better about like my own spending money, like writing it down, keeping it written on my notes, so I can more or less know throughout the month, like, this is my balance for my spending money. And and still live the way I like to live. Still like darme mis, my, si se me antoja, no sé, un café, or que me voy a hacer mis uñas, things like that. Mis uñas. So my pedicure, my manicure, and my hair color, that's already like embedded into the monthly budget. That's always like, that's a given. Like that's how much, it's already there. That's but then, money. Extra for, I don't know, lo que se le antoja a uno, es lo que se le antoja a uno. So I think now I'm better at that, at like making the best out of races that we get. And because I have, a partner who holds me accountable, I feel like I don't have to hold him accountable because he's on it. Pero conmigo sí, I need that little like, all right, let's sit down, let's work on this. And por más que renieguen, I'm like, oh, I hate this. It's beneficial to us at the end of the day, as a couple, as a family, with kids and expenses and all that. So
you and Luis have been doing a really good job with that budget. I know you hit us up the other day and you're like, oh my God, estuve toda la noche. We were going to have our retreat and we're going to review our numbers. And you're like, I was just doing this with Luis the other night. I don't want to do this again. Wow. And yes, it is uncomfortable.
I did it for work también.
Yeah, that's true. You were crunching numbers for work. But I think for me, like it's been a lot of that. Ceci, we talked about this before on podcasts when we would have bonuses and we're like, la chingada, gastarlo, let's spend this shit. Let's buy some shit. I mean, Ceci, you even treated us to things, right? Remember, we have our little bracelet que nos mandaste. It's not any little bracelet. It's a Tiffany's bracelet that you sent us.
The best.
And like little gifts.
Our friendship bracelet.
Our friendship bracelet.
I wore it, guys, and wore it and wore it and wore it hasta que de veras se me like quebró, and I was trying to Ceci me la puse and I wore it like religiously, like if somebody had asked me to marry them and it was a freaking wedding ring. Thank you, Ceci.
Creo que te la pueden arreglar.
Sí, es la Mine is super tarnished right now and I have to take it to the Tiffany. ¿La tiraste? Se te perdió.
Mine was, guys,
se te perdió.
Destroyed. I don't know where I had it. I'm thinking about it.
Girl, I'll take
Since my move, I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Ceci, I'm being honest. ¿Quién sabe, güey? I'm gonna find it, pero sí la tengo.
Pero sí se limpian. Uno mismo, like with a little flannel thing, like se limpia y se queda bien brillosa. Because mine was like super dirty the other day.
It was beautiful. Thank you for that, Care. But go ahead. Bero's point is still stands. It's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, getting that extra money is always kind of like because we're not used to it, right? We're just like, ay, qué emoción, especially when we're younger. I love how Irene spoke out to her younger clients. And it's, I think when we're young and we're thriving and we're doing well, we're just like, we have no worries in the world. We're just like, ¿qué tiene? Que al cabo vivo con mi mami y mi papi, and it's like, the thing is that we should be thinking about the future. For me, it took me a while to get it together. I was just out having fun. Like, tú no tienes, no te preocupes. You can bring 3 friends too. Don't worry. Like, let's live together, enjoy this. Like, when they say like, yo tengo and everyone's gonna have. Si tengo yo, vamos a tener todos. And that was like how I felt. And forever I've shared this before in our podcast. I had my brother like hammering down on me like, Vero, what are you doing? What are you thinking? You're having all these great experiences. That's awesome. But like, you can't live in your car. You're not going to live in your car, are you? Like, he would just kind of give me some really cold reminders about shit. Like, oh, okay, señorona, but what are you going to do with this? Like, you're getting older. So thanks to him, it was a whole like, you know what? I get 3 paychecks a month. In a sense, my bonus check was my 2 salary checks. I was like, you know what? That salary, my bonus, I'll just put it away. And next thing you know, I had enough money to saved to be like, I want to buy my house. And this is like in 2009, I think I bought my first house. But it was more of like well, it's right. Like, what am I doing? I'm working so hard and nothing to show for it. My mom had busted that one on me too. Like, trabajas tanto y nada para enseñarlo. And I'm like, because I wasn't into fancy clothes. I didn't care about the car. I didn't care about that stuff. It was just like, it's money. Who cares? Like, a como viene se va. But even then, like with money, if you don't, if you don't give it, like make it feel special, it's going to be like, okay, me voy, bye, let's move on. So I felt like I had to, same thing, give it a purpose. Like, you know what, dinerito, you're going to be put aside because we're going to do something big with you later. And little by little, and that's when I started thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm going to buy this house on my own, buy myself a house. And I started looking for houses on my own. My credit though, wasn't that great. So I knew I was like in the 600s. So it wasn't phenomenal, but it wasn't like terrible, but it wasn't great. And I started talking to my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, if I buy a house, can you be my co-signer? My dad's like, I'm down. But then I got engaged. And then my partner was like, hey, well, let's just do this together. Well, it was me more like, hey, my commitment to you is by us doing this together, which wasn't the best idea, but we did it. And I was able to put the majority of our down payment because I had that money saved. And I was like, look, my commitment is this. Like, I knew he was in debt. So girls, pay attention to your partners. I knew he had significant debt, pero como que nada, I'm like, okay, no te preocupes, I can do this for us. So I put I put the down payment, I put the majority of it, like I would say like 80% of it, and he pitched in como pudo. But I was okay with that. I'm like, this is my partner, we're going to be supportive of one another, we're going to be okay. But the next thing that happened, we weren't together anymore, and I was able to buy him out of our thing. But thankfully, you guys, ladies, don't do this with anybody because not everyone's going to be this rational and such like, respectful in the sense of like, hey, you wanted the house initially. It's for you. Tú quédate, tú, pay me out and we're good. And that's what happened. But the thing is that I had I was positioned to be able to do that. Now, if I would have been more trucha with everything else, I probably, things would have been a little bit different. But I still ended up being able to do that. And which later on gave me allowed me to then put that towards our new house with our family. And I wanted to bring this up because at our guilt-free squad dinner, I was mentioning to the girls that we were talking. They're like, hey, why do we live where we live, right? And for me, I feel like I've had that question asked to me before, like, oh, why do you live in Compton? Like, you can live anywhere. ¿Por qué vives en Compton? And I'm like, oh, because I want my kids to be exposed to this. I'm comfortable with the environment. I love the community that we're in. But then I started thinking about it too. And I was like, you know what? Living in Compton has also allowed me to be home with my kids because maybe, we could have invested in another house that was, que nos costará más and maybe, been something where we could be long-term. But I'm like, in the meantime, I know that I've wanted to be home with the kids. And what's allowed me to do that is deciding to live in a community like this. That's not like because we're poor and no nos quedan otras opciones, but it's like, hey, let's think about it. In the long run, buying a home here me va a ayudar a quedarme en la casa a few more years than having to go back to work immediately, right? So have you ever been faced with a decision when you've had, when you have your money and like having to be like, well, I'm doing this because of this when maybe someone else doesn't understand it for you? Irene's nodding her head, where it's like, it makes sense for you, your family, or maybe you if you were single. But it made sense for you to make that financial decision but it didn't make sense to anybody else. And you were just like, I'll explain it, but it still might not make sense to you. But this is why I'm doing it. Have you ever had to make a decision like that?
I think several times for us, because we always had like dreams that were a little out of the box. Man, we've made plenty of financial decisions like that. When we first bought a condo, we then decided to short sell it because we didn't want to pay it anymore in a bad market. Around the time you were buying Vero, like we were like, we're not going to live in that city anymore. We want to have different jobs. So that looked like to my family, like, why? Why not just stay where you are? Why not just live in that home? And we didn't. So that was the first time where it was like, okay, they're making moves that are different. And then when we moved to Redondo Beach, we moved here because of the school district. So kind of similar to Vero, like once it came time for our babies to go to school, it was like we want them to go to a school district that we love and we know is good and close enough to home. So we were renting in the school district. And I know my mom took issue with that a lot because she was like, your rent is so expensive there. Your rent is so expensive there. She often wanted me to move back to Inglewood because she felt that we were throwing money away, she would say, on the rent here because it was so expensive in her eyes. But then, like, secret to everyone else, like, not only were we renting here, we were saving a lot of our money to travel eventually. And we always thought if we didn't travel, we'd just buy the house that like we planned to buy, and like we'd just buy it when we were ready. But then we decided to, like, my husband left his job and we decided to travel for a year and spend all of our savings on that. And I know that my mom did not understand. My family thought was radical and crazy, but we knew our goal. Like, we knew we'll buy the house eventually. We'll get just fine. When we came back and resettled in Redondo, my mom was a little like still wanting to live in that neighborhood. Like, my God, like, está carísimo. Like, just buy a house in Inglewood. And I know a lot that she felt like that I was like bashing Inglewood, and it's fine. You grew up in Inglewood. You came here. If you are following the news, Inglewood is actually closing so many of its schools, closing one of its major high schools right now. It's like people just don't send their kids to schools in Inglewood, even if they live there. Like, it's just not, our community isn't thriving. And some might say it's because you don't stay in the community. Like, you got to stay so people can go to the schools. You got to participate. You got to be in the local PTA, and you got to have them in the sports. And I get that. I do respect that, and I get that. I have a niece that talks about how much she loves Hawthorne, and she doesn't want to leave Hawthorne because she just wants to make Hawthorne great. And her husband said, he's like, yeah, I say I'm from Hawthorne, even though I'm from Inglewood. Like, I just am so disappointed in Inglewood. So that's our city. We love our city, but we can love it from a distance and do good for a distance. But I know my mom had these issues with me not like having a rent that to her felt smarter, Beto. Like, I should have, she felt like my rent was ridiculous. But I liked it in the end. Like, we bought here. We didn't have to leave here. Our kids have thrived in this school district. Every time we do anything with the schools, this is why we made the sacrifice. This is why we drove the old car so that we could travel and not have a car payment. Or this is why we spent so many years renting before we were ready to buy, because we wanted to live in this neighborhood. So I get you 1,000%, Vero. I get it so much because I felt that I was terca about not wanting to leave here, and I loved living here, and I wanted to leave here. And I know that it didn't seem to my family like the smartest investment to live here while I was preparing to buy. But in the end, it was great because I lived here, and not only was I able to afford living here and renting here, I was able to travel. I was able to buy the house. You know, I've been able to give my kids really good experiences, but I did it on my terms, even though financially it seemed like very, very expensive to the outside facing people. I think it made sense for us.
También, in several occasions, and particularly like the year that I stopped working, you know, que también everybody was like, why did she stop working? Like, you know, ¿por qué se van a ir a Mexico? You know, like people were questioning that. That is so weird. Like, people are trying to come here. Ustedes se van a ir. Like, ¿por qué? Like, people didn't get it, you know? And
we had that conversation that people's parents were like, we escaped these countries.
Yes.
You're going to these countries. You're going to be in danger. You're traveling there. Like, that's not what we're doing, but I get it. Like, the judgment is like, ¿qué estás haciendo? Yeah. You're going backwards.
Haciendo? You know, you have a really good job at that law firm. Why are you leaving it? And that was just what, you know, that was a financial decision. One, because I wanted to stop working so I could spend time with my girls. I'm like, you know, they're little. I felt like I wasn't thriving at my law firm anymore. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. And I just didn't see myself doing, like, now I know, I'm like, I didn't know, like, oh yeah, like at that point I was just, and I've talked about this so much in the podcast, but I just wasn't thriving. I wasn't like enjoying driving to work. I was dreading it. But, you know, I was just like, oh my God, I come home and like I barely even see my daughters. So that was one reason. And then the idea of going to Mexico, we had always talked about that, like, oh, it'd be cool to do that when the girls are still small. And then it all kind of, you know, it all worked together. It all kind of fell into place because Luis was already working with researchers and folks when he was finishing up research for his doctorate degree. And it was like, with folks in La Ciudad de Mexico. So it just made sense. We had family there, so that was one decision that we made that was financial. It worked for our families. The girls were not in school, but guess what? I was able to do all kinds of things with the girls, activities, still record the podcast, still do the things that I enjoy and live my life. And yeah, like we were still in travel within Mexico. Like that was so cool. That was a good experience. And then second is right now. Like right now is that también Irene, yo terca que me encanta vivir aquí in the city. I love it. And it's just so convenient for all of us because Luis works from home. He goes to the office like once a week. And I guess he has the longest commute because their offices are in Oakland and now they're moving even further, like to kind of, I guess it's the East Bay, Pleasanton. Anyway, so he's going to have the longer commute, but he only really has to go to the office like once a week. So I think it's doable. Me, like I'm 20 minutes, 35 minutes or 40 minutes with traffic to the office. The girls' school is like a 4-minute drive. Yes, we're renting, but we rent this whole house, which has a lot of room in the backyard. We can have a dog. We can have all the things that I always kind of envision and that I love right now with my family. Yes, San Francisco is expensive, but we're renting and we probably can't afford anything right now. Quién sabe si en un futuro. And I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with just being a renter. It's kind of, you balance it off. Like we send the girls to private school, we can't afford a mortgage probably here right now, pero quién sabe, a lo mejor en un futuro when we don't have that, the tuition like to pay, no sé. And again, for me, I'm okay being a renter. I think Luis aspires to be a homeowner, and he'll even say like, oh, well, maybe we can move to like a nearby city. And I was like, pues a mí ahorita no me nace, a mí no me nace. And I think it's because I experience with my parents, like home ownership. Like my parents bought 2 homes here in Hayward, and they had that. Luis' parents always had a home in Mexico that they own. Like they never, when they lived here, they always rented an apartment. They never owned home here in the U.S. And I don't know if that's why he like aspires to that. Pero yo ahorita no, like I feel like we're so comfortable with everything, with where we live, with the home, like we get along with the landlord, ojalá que nos deje aquí más tiempo. And, he sees it. I think he sees that because we have young children. Like, it just wouldn't make sense for us to, like, make a move. And I love my job. I enjoy going to the office. Like, I'm so productive there. And I enjoy having the flexibility of working 2 days from home. And aquí tengo mi oficinita where I can do my job and I could do the podcasting. So that decision to me is, makes sense for us right now at this point in our lives. And yeah, el día de mañana a lo mejor we'll be homeowners, and quién sabe, a lo mejor aquí también en San Francisco, pero ahorita I'm just very happy with how we have our life set up.
I love it. I think that each one of us, you, Ceci, Irene, it's what we're showing in our story is that it's doing lo que te llama a ti. We're all such unique beings, and there's, we have different callings and we have different visions for ourselves and different dreams. And like, I knew that when I knew of Irene and Diego forever, they wanted to travel. And at first it was like, we're going to get an RV and we're going to travel the country. And then it turned to something else. But like, I'm like, oh my God, it must have been one of those things where they had young children. They were like, well, what do we do with these young kids, And then like Ceci, it's beautiful that you found a place that you love, and you enjoy being in. And I'm thinking, really at the end of the day, whether you own or you rent, the point is that you are happy, that you are not only just content, but you are satisfied with the way you are choosing to use the money that you bring into your life and how you spend it on your life, right? And how you put it to use. And I mean, right now with you saying like anywhere else but San Francisco, I'm like, enjoy it. And qué bueno, qué bonito que you love where you live, you love where you work, you love what you do, you love the things that are happening around you. And these are all things that are possible because of the your financial decisions, the decisions that you make on how to put your money to work for you. So that's beautiful. And I feel from this conversation too, we've been allowed to like, hey, be aware. Just be aware. Like, what is it that you want? What do you love? What do you see yourself? What do you envision for yourself? If you want to travel, if you want to have fun, if you want to have no worries, be stress free when you have an emergency and not have to, rake up my credit cards. Be smart with your money. If you're young, take advantage of it. That it's you, create budget that makes sense for you. Use a method, a money planning method that works for you, that still allows you to be fun and adventurous, yet prepare for your future, because we're all headed that way. We're all going to be viejitas one day, si Dios quiere, nos permite. And the last thing we want to do is live in regrets, especially about financial decisions, right? And how we put our money to use. And it takes some time to learn and to grow and all of that. But at least what we want to make sure our audience keeps in mind is that no matter what it is, if you've struggled with money or if you've been great with money, it's like, be purposeful, have an idea, have a vision, and start separate your money into the different pockets that you want it to contribute into your life. So I know I tell my clients, I'm like, hey, your 9 to 5, you might not love it. You might be really good at it. Find meaning in your job. Find meaning in your job que te ayude to show up every day and do your best, right? Because that's going to fund your life after that 5 p.m., right? It's going to fund your life. So I'm not even going to ask another question because I already know you ladies so well. Because I'm like, how has this funded your life after 9 to 5? Irene, travel, por supuesto, and all these other great stuff. But is there something that you haven't shared maybe? What other thing has your 9 to 5 or the thing that you do help fund your life after work? Like what happens in your life after work?
That's such a good question.
Well, I think travel too. Like we are able to take a yearly vacation as a family. We're able to do that to whatever place we want to go to. And let me rephrase that. Whatever place I want to go to, because yo siempre soy la que dicto, a dónde vamos a ir. So we're able to do that. Take a vacation with a yearly vacation and sometimes like a mini trip, yearly también con la familia. So we're able to do that. And then for the past 2.5 years, like we were able to pay for caregivers for my mom. We were able to do that and essentially for my dad too. And just like being able to help in that regard, we were able to do it. And so, por eso es que, that's what our 9 to 5 provides. And being able to live that comfortable life and, saliditas que a comer and on the weekends and just the extracurricular activities as a family. That's really what I'm able to do because of that.
Qué bonito being your kids, going to the private school, going to las escapaditas, going to Bacalar. Yeah, we spend a lot of that 9 to 5 money traveling now with our son, just being able to apply to any college he wants to. When we were growing up, like our parents, thank God we got fee waivers. Like they weren't going to just be like, you want to throw money away to a dream school that you have a 9% chance of getting into, but you want to apply, let's do that. Like that 9 to 5 is funding that lifestyle, right? Like our kids don't think twice, about what things cost, and that's beautiful. And they're very grateful, and they're taught to save, and they're taught to appreciate what they have, and they're taught to have perspective. But it was funny. We were out to dinner yesterday celebrating my son's end of college application season because he got his last answer from the last school he was waiting for. He applied to 12 schools. And we'll have an episode all about that experience, and we'll cry on that for sure. But one thing we talked about was we were going to go to dinner no matter what. Like, we're going to go celebrate. We're going to be excited, get good news, bad news. The news we got yesterday was from Berkeley. So we go to that dinner, and we're driving, and we were like, what are you craving? What do you want? He's like, whatever you guys want, whatever you guys want. I'm like, no, it's about you. He's like, well, I'm kind of craving seafood. So then we're like, what's the closest seafood place? And we had kind of driven away from all the good spots in like Gardena that have like lobster boil and stuff. So then we ended up randomly by the Del Amo Mall, and we had Red Lobster. So we're in Red Lobster, we're ordering whatever. And I was like, this is on me. This is on me today. I'm treating both my boys or whatever. So then Isaiah opens the menu and he's like, dang, like I didn't know Red Lobster was like that. I thought it was like a Chili's, and it was like $50 plates. And because it's like lobster, right? It's not expensive, good lobster where we probably should have spent at a better place. But it just felt nice to know that, like, no importa. Like, no importa. Like, we didn't worry about We wouldn't walked in here if we were worried about the price tag. What I didn't want him to think was like that was a good lobster establishment. I was like, let's just be clear. Like this is like the Chili's of going out to eat lobster. And we could have done that too, but we're here. You know, it was like a $200 bill. It was 3 of us. And that 9 to 5 funds that. Like it funds the feeling of, thank God, you know, we're at a place where like Diego always reminds Isaiah that like growing up, fancy to him was Sizzler, and he probably went there twice, you know, and when he got to college, he felt, we talked all things college at that dinner, and it was really beautiful. It makes me a little emotional thinking about it, because Diego talked about how his whole first year he felt like an imposter. His whole first year he felt like he didn't belong. And what am I doing in this world that is all these smart white males that are brilliant, that have country homes and this, that, and the other. And then he realized at the end of that first year how worthy he was, how smart he was, how proud he was to be from Inglewood. His nickname ended up being Inglewood for 4 years. I don't know how racist that is in the end, but the point is that we didn't grow up the same way. Our kid grew up different, you know, and my mom probably would have had to save all year to take me to the Red Lobster so that I could go, dang, at the menu. But that's what it funds. It funds like just being here and being in the moment and not thinking twice about what gas costs and what groceries cost. And remember when you listen to this, tip of the day, this is the other side of years of getting it together. Like Vero said, in our 20s, we didn't know what to do. Guys, we learned the hard way. I love to share the story of like when I was starting out, my husband and I, we had no money. I was at the 99-cent store deciding between like, is it eggs? Is it peanut butter? Like, so when someone says to you now, like, oh, I'm at the Red Lobster, I don't care if it's a $50 plate. Don't judge that where they are now. Judge how they got there. Like, where were they before? Was it always like that? Are they super grateful for that plate? Yes. We're so grateful for that plate.
I'm like, why didn't you take me to the Red Lobster, Irene? I would have been down. I would have chowed down on some $50 lobster.
Vámonos. We didn't even have high hopes, but it was actually pretty good. I brought home all these leftovers. But anyway, it just funds like not thinking about it, right? Like not thinking about gas prices, grocery prices, and going to dinner and applying to the college that you want to. And it's esfuerzo too, because it's a lot of saving money and making good decisions. And it's been good being able to show our son, like he's going to do even better than us. He's going to do even better than us. Funny, when we were talking about renting or buying, I probably would have been a renter my whole life. Part of me wanted to buy because I wanted the kids to see us buy. I wanted the kids to see us own property. I wanted Isaiah to still live at home when we did that. Because I always envisioned that when the 2 youngest are done with school, we'll either rent this property and others. I'd love to buy property like wherever they go to college. Part of the strategy of why my son may go to college in the state he's going to. It's like a long-term vision for me. Like I would love to buy a property that he lives in wherever he goes to school. So we all have these plans and we have them quietly to ourselves. But eventually I see myself liquidating all this, like and traveling again. That's what I really see. But the 9 to 5 funds that now. All those dreams that we have, like the 9 to 5 funds those. Like later on, they're all gonna head off to college and not live here. I'm gonna live in that RV, Vero. I'm gonna live in that RV.
I think
that dream.
Yeah.
I think you know what? Our generation is more about experiences than material, you know? And our parents were not. Our parents, it was about like having the home. And so eres dueño de tu casa y no estás rentando. And that's, you know, and quizás, you know, we don't do the big trip or the vacation and we're of a different mentality. Like we're about experiences. We want to travel the world, show our kids that they can travel the world and you know, have those experiences with them.
I always felt like, well, the one thing I haven't shown them is like, if that is your goal, if that is your dream, quieres comprarte una casita, you got to save for it. Es un esfuerzo, you got to look, you got to be brokenhearted. I wanted to show them that last thing, right? Like I felt like Isaiah was leaving. I'm like, let me show him that. And he saw that, he's gone, he moves on. I think he won't be surprised if he hears that like mom and dad are gone again. They're over living. They don't want to live, but he will see that
in Bali.
Right.
Forever.
Yes, forever.
Of course, you guys, we were talking about the difference between us and our parents, right? Our parents dejaron sus ranchitos, dejaron sus pueblitos, and they aspired. Like they couldn't go back, not easily at least, right? They couldn't go back, at least not easily. And they couldn't travel as easily. So it allowed us to fly. It allowed us to decide whether we wanted to rent or buy. It allowed us to say, like, you know what, I want to experience because maybe they weren't able to. So now I always say it, and it's not like we were purposely living out our parents' dreams because our parents told us we should do this, you know, without even words, but they allowed us to spread our wings and fly. Like we had our trips were in the car driving down to Mexico, and if it wasn't if it wasn't our car porque no servía, that's how poor we were. We would jump on the bus, and it would take us more than 24 hours to get there, sleeping in estaciones del bus, but getting to the pueblitos and the ranchos of our parents. But I feel that a lot of what they did, it was to kind of allow us to be. The fact that they were, in a sense, materialistic, and not in the bad sense, right? Of like having something, for us to have, their children to have a place to call home was what was so important to them, because they had to leave their homes and weren't easily able to go back. So, ahorita que lo pensé ahorita, sí, like when both ladies were saying, I was like, fuck, like that's massive, that's major. Even with you, Irene, the simple act is like, I want to show him that it's possible. We don't have to right now, but I'm going to do it because I want my son to, if he one day wants to do it, he knows it's definitely possible because his parents did it. And the traveling, like doing all of that, that's so, I think I am right now, just blew my own mind just thinking about like how hard it must have been for them. Like just even telling my mom, me voy a Rosarito with the homies. Con las amigas.
Like,
and then, ¿para qué chingados vas a Rosarito? ¿A qué vas allá?
Yo ni le decía.
I know. I never said it. I was like, Ceci, que no sepan. I was so into what you were saying, Vero, that I was over here como una mensa looking for the love button on Zoom. I'm like, we're on Squadcast. I'm all looking with the mouse. I'm like, I want to gas it. They need those here so that we can like gas each other. Obviously, we can be like mimes, but I was not looking for the love button. Like, that's right, Pero. Our parents had to love their land, and they had to like plant their flag here. They couldn't go back. They appreciate their homes in a way that maybe we don't, because it's a different life, right? Yeah, you're so right. You're so right.
Yeah. But un abrazo a todas. We've reached the point that we say goodbye. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Level Up Latina. Hopefully this conversation got you thinking about how you want to put that money, that promotion, that good vibes coming your way to use and for the purpose that you want it to, especially your money, the purpose you want your money to serve in your life. So suerte con eso. And if you want to keep the conversation going, you know where to find us. You can find us via email at admin@leveluplatina.com. You can go to our website, leveluplatina.com, to find out all about Vero, Ceci, and Irene, Level Up Latina, our podcast, our guilt-free squad community, where the podcast comes to life. Join us. We have actually made our guilt-free squad community so much more accessible to you ladies. Join it. We have an amazing rate that is now for our membership at I believe it's $30 a month, ladies, $30 a month. And you get 3 amazing coaches. We get great conversations. We get shared experiences and a beautiful community of support, and sharing of wins and losses, abrazos, virtual hugs through our chat and through our monthly calls. You can also find us on social media at Level Up Latina in Facebook and on Instagram. And occasionally you'll find us on I don't even think it's called Twitter anymore. It's called what? X? On the X. It's Latina_up. So if you like today's episode, like it, share it, download it. If you want to also promote your business, service, and all that good stuff, you can do a podcast shout out with us. We'd love to share your Latina-owned business with the world. So feel free to check that out. Also, you can find that on our website as well. So before we go, un abrazo. Se cuidan todas. Las quiero un chingo.
Besos.
Besitos.
Besos.
Besos.
Thank you.
Ciao.